Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jacob Restituto, and I'm a musician from Northport, New York. And today we have Sammy Arriaga here on the channel. Sammy, where are you located? I know you're in Nashville, like you live in Nashville, but I've seen you in New York for a while. So, are you in New York now? Are you in Nashville again?
As much as I wish I lived in New York, I did really connect with the city while I was there. But I live in Nashville, and I'm originally from Miami, Florida.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
welcome to the channel, man. I appreciate you coming, taking the time to come on. So, Sammy is a phenomenal artist who I actually had the pleasure of meeting in New York City a couple, like maybe about a month ago. So I'm really looking forward to having this chat. So for people that aren't familiar with you and your music just yet, can you give a little bit of your backstory, a little bit of your history? Go as far back
Mhm.
as you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up in Miami, for those of you who have been there, you guys know that Miami is a huge melting pot of a bunch of cultures. You have Europeans, you have South Americans, uh, Americans, European, everywhere. It's a huge melting pot. So I was immediately, listening to music like salsa, hip hop, EDM. I mean, you name it. So I grew up listening to all kinds of genres, and I feel like that's what really shaped the lyricist that I am today, uh, the melodic creator that I am today as well. Um, but believe it or not, I did not discover music until I was in high school. I always loved music growing up. I was a listener of music, a collector of music, but didn't really do it like full time. I was kind of a geek growing up. I was a player of Pokemon and RPG games, and I would be behind the screen, all day, every day when I wasn't in school. And then I discovered soccer when I was in middle school, and that kind of helped me become a little more social and get into better shape because I wasn't in very good shape at the time. And it truly shaped my teen years. And to the point that I wanted to become a professional footballer. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out the way I thought it would have because of the amount of competition in Miami, and just like it just didn't seem like it was going to work out. I needed to lean on something immediately that was going to, put bread on the table and, allow me to, to be on a path that felt more, more clear to me. And so decided to start diving into music.
Which I
My
gotta
buddy,
say is kind of ironic that you went from
yeah,
one, people say it's very hard to make it in the sports industry. So like you're like it's funny that you're saying that as you're describing it, the music industry. You're like, I need somewhere that's I can put bread on the table. I was like, man, shoot. Most people don't think of the music industry like that either. So I just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty
it's
funny.
funny you bring that up. You're so right. I was just, very fortunate when I was in Miami that I had a few, local restaurants and bars,
Mm.
give me the opportunity to, just pop up and sing a few songs for a couple $100. And then, my dad knew that I loved music and I wanted to chase it and pursue it, but he offered to take me to the auditions to some of these talent shows that you guys know on TV. And so I did some of those just to kind of test the waters. And I got lucky one year on American Idol. It was 2011. We did the auditions in New Orleans, made it all the way to the Hollywood rounds. But unfortunately, I got cut during the top 200.
Hmm.
And so when I got cut, I knew that I needed to do something to continue that. I wasn't just going to stop there and go back to Miami and just get a local job and just call it a day. I wanted to continue pursuing the arts because I knew that that's where my heart was, wanted to be. And so my dad suggested that I move to Winter Park, Florida, and study at this university called Full Sail,
Yep.
and pursue a recording arts engineering degree. And so I gave it a shot. I went, did the whole thing, signed up, started taking classes, got the laptop, was on the schedule. And 3, 4 months in, I just felt a disconnect. Something in my spirit was like, dude, this is not where you're supposed to be. You need to move to Nashville and just pack your bags and just tell the office that you're not coming back tomorrow and just go for it. And something in my spirit just said, I got your back.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, all right. So I listened to the little voice in my head, and
What year was that?
13, this was 2011.
Oh, so the same
Yeah,
year. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it was the same year. Sorry, the auditions were 2010. I moved to Nashville 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So when I moved to Nashville, I was all by myself. Didn't have any family in Nashville. I just knew a few people that I had actually connected with on Facebook at the time because there was not a lot of other apps people were using. There wasn't like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, none of that. It was just Facebook. It was like in its prime.
Hmm.
And so made the big move to Nashville and immediately started diving into the scene, started playing at all the honky tonks anytime anybody asked, if they needed somebody. And I would just write with everybody that said, yeah, I'm a songwriter and I'm looking for people to write with. I would just say yes to everybody just so that I can start building my relationships and start, putting together a network of friends that, that I can collaborate with in Nashville. So did that for many years. By doing that, it opened a lot of doors, met labels, met publishers. And then fast forward to now, you know, I'm 13 years into the music industry now, and I'm a fully independent artist right now. Not signed to a label, do not have a manager, um, and the most my team is probably three people, and it's honestly like the basic needs for an independent artist, which is a publicist, an attorney, and a business manager who does
Mm.
my my financials. But that's it. Aside from that, I do most of the creative stuff. I have the full uh, spectrum when it comes to like choosing the songs, the artwork, and what I do next in my career. So it's been fun. It's nice to you know that this has all been an organic growth, all these years. But I have been through the roller coaster of the music industry, and it was crazy. A
Oh,
lot of ups and
absolutely.
downs. Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I relate a lot to your story actually because similar to you, I mentioned that I dropped out of college as well. You've been in the industry a bit longer than I have. I'm coming up on 8 years myself personally since I dropped out. But it's yeah, for sure. The roller coaster of the music industry is something that you learn very quickly in the music industry. There's a couple of things you learn very quickly, and that is definitely one of them. But then again, to some degree, like my dad owns a business. He owns a construction company, and to some degree, it's very reminiscent of the just entrepreneurship in general, the roller coaster of entrepreneurship in general, of learning to manage things, because they come in huge waves and up and down. But
Yeah, it's
um,
wild, man. But you know what? It helps you build your rhino skin,
hundred
and
percent.
it just prepares you for like when you do catapult. Like I would much rather get my ass beaten first, the first 2, 5, 7 years before the success comes in, because if you succeed and you're still green and you're still easy to like poke at, people are gonna manipulate you,
Oh yeah, man.
and they're gonna stomp all over you. So
I think that that's a lesson that you only kind of learn in hindsight. The gratitude of like, oh shoot, I'm really grateful that I wasn't where I am now or where I want to be when I wanted to be
yeah,
there. Um, you
when I
become
asked for it, I'm happy I
exactly.
didn't get it when I asked for it. Yeah,
Exactly, because
yeah.
like you said, like it would have been a disaster. My mental health would
Hmm.
have been a disaster. It just would have been a nightmare. So like it's a blessing in disguise that it was a not yet instead of a yes or a no at the time. It's just a let's wait a little. And to some degree, it's even sweeter. When you work for something, the victory is that much sweeter than if it's just kind of just handed to you. I released my first song. I was like, this is gonna blow up. 130 songs later. Like, but like you think that you wouldn't appreciate it as much if that first song just blew up as opposed to 130 songs in. Now you're like, when the one actually does, you're like, shoot, I really worked for this.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's all about timing, and everything happens for a reason, man. And so I feel like that was the case with my career, and it's still not done. I mean, I still feel like I'm in the early days of
Oh
my
yeah,
career. Like I'm just getting started,
yeah.
and I don't mean it in an arrogant way. Like I literally feel like all these years were solely to prepare me for the madness.
Hmm.
Because if it's hard now, I can only imagine how much harder it's going to become when things really truly take off and you're selling arenas and you're flying private across the world, and stuff like that. Like that's a hard life. That gets nonstop. Like you have to be there at, not 1 minute early, not 1 minute late,
Yeah.
so, and I always think like, how does Bieber do it? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? How does he do it? He's the most popular male pop artist in the world, and he seems to be fine. You know what I mean? If he's fine, then we should be too.
Very interesting. Yeah, man. So I would love to hear about your perspective on just, you mentioned Nashville. You moved there in 2011. 11 years later, a lot has changed, and you also mentioned the fact that, like, social media wasn't as prevalent. Like, Instagram only came out in 2010. So, like, Instagram was around for like maybe a year by the time you moved to Nashville. You said you mentioned Facebook groups and like the people you met on Facebook. So I'm curious to see, like, now with all these other social medias that are really like, it's part of life now. And we're kind of transitioning also into the whole Web3 conversation, but like the middle, let's talk about that for a sec. How have you seen Nashville and the music industry change since like the 2011 time, pre most social medias, to the current state of where we are today?
I feel like country music was always a very hard copy industry, where, and it still is, which is crazy. If you go look at like the numbers of like physical albums sold, um, most of the top 10 this year are still country artists.
Hmm.
Like, country fans love buying physical things. Um, and I feel like country music's always a few years behind when it comes
Mm.
to technology and like advancements in the aspect of like social media, TikTok, and stuff like that. Um, but for some reason, I feel like TikTok kind of broke that stigma, because now country music, as opposed to what it was a few years ago, where it was like iTunes sales and concert tickets and terrestrial radio, before satellite radio. This is like actual radio, um, and album sales. It's like fast forwarded in like the last 2 years to being like, we need TikTok, like we need it now. We can't wait the 4 or 5 years that it typically takes
Mhm.
us to get there. We need to do it now before we miss the train. And so now country music has literally become TikTok. Like, that is what country music is now. It's crazy. And I
Mhm.
hate to say that, and some people will not agree with me, but it really is. Like, if you go look at like all the biggest country artists in the world right now, like Carrie Underwood, Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, all these people, they're all on TikTok.
Mhm.
They're all posting stuff on TikTok. They're all posting viral songs, little snippets of unreleased songs. Like, that is what the culture has become now in country music. And it's like, it's a digital country, and that's what we are. You know what I mean? So it only makes sense.
Where do you see that going in the future? Like, well, first of all, how do you see yourself capitalizing on that, and then where do you see that going in the future?
Well, I mean, as an independent artist, I could see me capitalizing on that in the aspect of like, my outreach is insane. Like, the fact that I could literally grab my phone at any minute of the day and play the lotto. Like, that's what I look at it like, I'm
Wow.
playing
Yeah.
the lotto.
Yeah. That's a
Like,
great
dude,
perspective.
think about it. Right now, you might be like, "Oh, I look good today. I sound good today too. I'm gonna throw my phone on the table." And just because of that little spurt of inspiration, you might be opening up for Tim McGraw tomorrow,
Mhm.
because that video went globally viral, and now you're the guy that does that. Like, let's say you created a trend and you're the guy that does that, and you do it again and again and again and again and again. You're repetitious with it, repetitive with it, and boom. Next thing you know, you're on the news. A local country sensation who sings old school country songs while going to work to his construction site, you know, like, went viral, and he's getting 30 million views a day. I don't know, I'm
Yeah,
just
man. No.
hypothetically speaking. Just because you said every morning before I go to the construction site, I'm going to sing a 30-second snippet of one of my favorite country songs.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that could happen.
It's true. It's not. It doesn't
And
even sound
my
crazy anymore.
yeah, it doesn't even, yeah, anybody could go viral now. You
Yeah.
just have to, not, but not everybody has the want. See what
Can
I'm
you
saying?
elaborate on that?
Not everybody's willing to put in the hours because they don't want it as bad as others do.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so like my goal in life is to get my music heard by as many people as possible. And if you're telling me that by simply putting my phone on a table and taking 5-10 minutes of my day to make something cool, like a cover or sing along to one of my own songs, is gonna take my streams from 5,000 streams a day to 55,000 streams a day, sign me up. It's
Yeah.
free. I could
Yeah.
just do it at any time of the day.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tell all my friends that are like, how'd you do it? Like, how'd you get all your numbers to go up so much? Like, you're independent. I'm like, I'm not even that big of an artist, but like, I took the time and I grabbed my phone and I said, I'm going to give it a shot. It might not be the best shot because, of course, it's coming from me. I'm always going to be hard on myself. But to somebody out there, it might be an incredible video.
Yeah. No,
You know
that's
what I
fair
mean? So
perspective.
it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, for you, you might overthink it. You might think this is the crappiest video ever. But that same crappy video could be the video that'll change your life forever.
It's incredibly true, and there's a quote that I like stealing pretty often, that quality is subjective, and what you think is a
Very
terrible
true.
video, somebody might think is a phenomenal video for many different reasons. I mean, we were talking 30 seconds before we started filming that, like, about the video quality of filming these interviews and stuff, and I was like,
Mm.
you were, I appreciated the compliment. You were complimenting the video quality of my camera. I was like, but you know what's funny, man? It's like, it doesn't even matter to some degree. People like don't even care as
Mm.
much. Like, there's plenty of videos out there and plenty of creators that are much larger than I am that their video quality is way worse. So it's like, where is quality is super subjective in the sense of like quality of the creator themselves, quality of the equipment, quality of whatever you're making people feel. Like, there's so many different factors, and when they all align is when you hit that lotto
Yeah.
ticket, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of that is actually the young gentleman who does he does
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
hands like this.
I think his
I
name's
forgot his
Kabi.
name.
Kabi,
Kabi, yeah.
something like that.
So his videos are not even that high quality. They're just like an iPhone video, and he's just going,
Hmm.
and people love it. They think it's hilarious, and that's his thing. You
He's
see how
now the
you
biggest
remember?
TikToker in the world.
That's what I mean. And he
Hmm.
doesn't even carry around like crazy gear. He just has his phone,
Yeah.
and he did something that people resonated with, and he kept going with it.
Yeah.
And I have a good friend. Her name's Alexandra Kay, who I'm sure you've heard of through Mike Boyd, our good friend. And she went viral on TikTok because she is the young country girl that sings old school country songs while making her morning coffee.
Mm.
That's
Hmm.
all she does. She just
Hmm.
pulls the carton out of the fridge, grabs the mason jar, puts the ice while she's singing a song. And it's so real. It's
Hmm.
so relatable
Mm.
that all her fans are like, wait, I drink that same milk. Or like,
Hmm.
oh, wait, I have that same mason jar.
Hmm.
Or I have that same creamer for my coffee. And it's like these little things that people don't even realize. That is what makes the video go viral, is how real it is to the person on the other side of the screen.
That's really interesting. So, like, to some degree, do you find that some of your better performing content are the content that's not that highly produced?
Correct. The ones that are
Interesting.
not polished. The ones that like you just grab your phone without thinking, just throw it, do your
Really?
thing,
Hmm.
and throw your lyrics on it and post.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Goes against
don't
everything
overthink
you've
it.
ever learned as a creator, like beforehand.
Right? It's the complete opposite. Yeah, you thought everything before was like, oh, I have to get a director. I have to get this. It's got to look like the coloring and all this.
Well, even to some
It's
degree,
crazy,
like
man.
as simple as a camera. Like 95% of the TikToks you see are filmed on iPhones, and as
Mm.
opposed to like some fancy camera. And here I am, with my fancy camera always on me, kind of thing. Like, doesn't even matter to some degree.
Yeah, and you always get that like, oh, this is really high quality. It must be an ad.
Yeah,
You kind of get that too. You know.
yeah, yeah. It's incredibly true. I would love to hear about your perspective on what, like, quote unquote, caring about what people think with content.
Yeah.
How do you handle putting yourself out there as something that your friends might think is cringy or might not understand or like totally get. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
I mean, I've kind of it took me a while to just kind of I guess fight through that because it's kind of like an obstacle you have to kind of overcome in your own head for after a certain amount of time of doing it you kind of
Hmm.
just ignore it. um I just now the mentality for me is like, okay, you're saying you're cringy. Let's deep dive into what you do. And so like I'll go and click on their profile and they have like 80 followers
Mm-hmm.
with like 2 posts and like no reels, like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't even bother. I
Mm-hmm.
just like dust it off. You know what I mean? But the people that do have the time to say it's cringy, it's because they have nothing eventful happening for them in their own life.
Mm. Very interesting.
Because if they were busy, they wouldn't have the time to say your stuff was cringy.
Mm-hmm. That's a
Does
fair
that make any
perspective.
sense? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. So I would love to now kind of move on from the Web 2, as we call it, into the Web 3 conversation of you've been actually a pretty big forerunner in the whole NFT Web 3 music space. And I'd love to hear you talk about that and just kind of for the people that it has a very big stigma to some degree where like as soon as you bring it up, people are like, you scam artists, like cringe kind of
Yeah.
content. Like they don't want to hear it. So like I would love it if you can kind of give a little bit of a backstory and then also talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So a good friend of mine from back home, who I used to make music with in Miami, he, he actually made me aware of just what everything was. He taught me what Web 3 was. He's like, "Do you know what Web 3 is?" And I didn't even know what Web 2 was. That's the thing. Like until Web 3, I didn't even know that the webs had numbers. And so he kind of told me like, yeah, Web 2 is considered like TikTok, Instagram, whatnot. Even Twitter. Twitter is Web 2. Um, it just happens to be the hub for where Web 3 people are, to communicate. But he told me, he's like, yeah, I've been collecting these digital assets, the digital pieces of art called NFTs, and I want to teach you about them. I think as a musician and somebody with a very tight knit community and fan base, this would be a really really useful tool for you to have, moving forward. And right now, it's the Renaissance era of it all, And I feel like if you go in now, it's kind of like finding TikTok in its early days. You probably would have been a mega viral influencer if you would have found it during the early days. So here I am telling you about this during the early days. So go get it. And so I started diving in. He kind of told me where to go, which is, the good old Twitter. And he told me to start joining these things called Twitter Spaces, which are live chat rooms that you could join in at any time for free. And you could listen to people talking from all over the world in real time about certain topics. And all the rooms vary in topics. Some will be sports, some will be music, some will be art, and then some will be NFTs. And so that's what I started doing early on. Last October was when I first started diving in. And I would just join these chat rooms, and uninvitedly ask to speak and, say hello to the room. I would offer to sing a song, believe it or not. And along the way, I found a few art communities and NFT communities that really spoke to me and made me feel welcome and acknowledged. And they turned out to be what I call my NFT family because they're so close. We're so close now to the point that we know what each other's voices sound like. It's so personal. So fast forward from when I started until I dropped my first music NFT, it was about 4 months of just hanging out, doing my own research, learning about cybersecurity, about the lingo, because there's a lot of words that are used in Web3 that aren't commonly used in everyday language. And when I felt it in my spirit that it was the right time to drop my first project, that was when we did Meta Girl back in February. I believe it was the 25th of February, yeah. And it was a collection of 1,500 music NFTs. We worked with two incredible artists, one being Hattie the Creator on the placeholder image, which is the heart in the sand in the desert. If you go to OpenSea and type Meta Girl by Sammy Arriaga, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. We also worked with Raspy Arts on the 3D version of the digital heart. Once you hit play on the NFT, not only will the whole song play, but you'll also see a 3D render of the digital heart that we did, and it turned out so beautiful. And I'm just so proud that it all came together the way that it did. And it was just incredible timing, because when I dropped that, we already had an established community in place where I wasn't like taking a shot in the dark and being like, all right, I have the product. Who should I sell it to? It's more like, hey guys, what should I make? What do you want? And they're already ready to go. Like they were there, ready to support me. I just didn't have the product.
Was this
They,
they, as in like the community that you recently got involved in, like the Twitter Space NFT community, or they
correct.
as in? Okay, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So the cool thing about Spaces is that they're utilized by art collections. For example, the collection that I gravitated towards, their name is Apocalyptic Apes, which is actually this hat that I'm wearing right now. And they're a collection of 8,888 unique apocalyptic apes. And how it works is that the community will gather on a Twitter space to talk about the project. How could they better the project? What else can they do to like bring more people in? And so spaces are used so that we could create more hype for these collections. And so that's what I did. I joined different art collections that were not music related. They were just simply collectors and avid lovers of art and music. And so I would come in already wearing one of their profile pictures as my PFP. And so it instantly gave them that sign of like, oh wow, he's one of us. Like he has one of our NFTs. And so that allowed me to strengthen our relationship, allowed me to keep coming back and sharing more of my music. And that just turned into an incredible bond and a friendship that unlike any other, and that now I could say that I know my fans by voice, and by personality. And,
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's really cool. It's really, really personal. I've never been so in tune with my collectors and my fan base until Web3. And that's probably why, I keep coming back every single morning. I wake up, do my morning ritual, pop into a Twitter space and say hello to everybody.
So when you, I guess you call it minted or sold your first 1,500 Metagirls, did you sell all 1,500 or like at once, or was it a slow trickle effect? How did that work?
Yeah, so there's a difference between minting and purchasing. So minting is where you purchase an NFT on the official website. For example, I'll give you an example, sammynft.com. Let's say you buy my NFT from the primary website before it reveals. That's considered minting, because you're technically like rolling the dice
of what you
that
get.
you're gonna get a rare one from the collection. Because within collections there's rarities. There's one that are more in demand than others. And so by minting, you're rolling the dice for the same price that everybody else is paying, that you're gonna get a really rare one in the collection, and you're gonna be able to down the road list it on secondary market, which is like an OpenSea or LooksRare or Coinbase NFT, and you're going to be able to list it for more than what you purchased it for. And then you might sell it and earn profit. And so that's why minting is always like a fun thing to do, because everybody's paying the same price, so it's fair all across the board. But there's a chance that your best friend or your mom or your brother might get the rarest one in the collection, and then boom, they flip it. They sell it for profit, and then they're up $9,000 or $10,000. Like things like that have happened left and right.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So as a musician myself, one of my 2022 goals was to make my own NFT. But
cool.
I'm curious as to your aspect of like my supporter group is so not into crypto. So like, are you converting your supporters, or are you finding new ones in the crypto space?
I felt like it was a great opportunity for me to like hone in on what I felt was the honey hole of enthusiasts, like NFT enthusiasts that were already familiar with crypto, were already familiar with purchasing NFTs. So knowing that I didn't have to go through that educational phase or the onboarding phase,
Mm.
I just honed in on them and
Mm-hmm.
showed and just gave them all my love and hung out with them and connected with all of them on a personal level,
Mm.
and just kind of introduced my music to them first, if that makes any sense, so that we can create a little bit of hype, based on that success. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Where during Metagirl, I didn't onboard anybody. I just aimed for all of those
Mm.
people that were already familiar with the space. We sold out in God's name. And then I was able to take those words to the Web2 platforms like TikTok or Instagram and say, we just sold 1,500 music NFTs in a month
Mm-hmm.
and made this much in crypto. And it took that for people to start going, okay,
Very
you know?
interesting. Almost proof of
So
concept.
correct.
That's
So I needed a
super
proof. So I
interesting.
needed a proof of concept. And so that's what we did. We went and created a proof of concept. Success. Like thankfully, it was through my success and having a successful product, and using that as proof of concept for everybody in Web 2 who had no idea what I was even doing.
Yeah. And then how did you
And
go
I,
about
yeah,
onboarding your supporters?
believe it or not, I would just post little stories here and there on Instagram, and whoever would reach out and
Mm.
say, hey, I'm curious in what you're doing, or I want to take you to coffee. I want to pick your brain. This is really interesting to me. I would put like little polls saying like, if I went out of my way to get on a Zoom call to teach you about NFTs, would you do it? And I
Mm.
would just put yes or no. And then whoever would say yes, I would just DM them and go, hey, I'm willing to help you, onboard into Web3, let's go. Like, let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
super
would do,
interesting.
yeah, yeah, it's time consuming, but it's there's so much value in that, in
Sure.
education and onboarding,
100%.
because not only are you opening the door to what can be a potential fan of yours, but you're opening the door for them for a whole nother realm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? A whole nother level of the web,
Yeah.
you know? So I'm just excited to be in the position that I'm in and just be somebody that people can reach out to, when there's any doubt or confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Because I truly do love helping people. That's one of my passions. I love giving back to the
Mm-hmm.
community and providing value in any way I possibly can.
Yeah. I really appreciate the aspect of the pre onboarding with everybody, like the proof of concept idea. I think that's a really unique idea where it's like rather than going to a community that like might kind of be a little apprehensive at first of like, oh, these scam artists NFT kind of thing, like selling some things to people that are already interested. Rather than trying to convert people, you have people that are already interested. Sell it to them,
Correct.
and then
Yeah.
be like, "Hey, look at this is real. This is what's happening. If you want to get involved, I'll teach you," kind of thing. That's a super interesting way to go about it. Because
Yeah,
otherwise,
because
sorry,
yeah,
continue.
because like for example, no, I was gonna say like for example, like I have friends who kind of had a different mentality where they're like, look, I don't know crypto, I don't know NFTs, I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know Sammy, and I have $500. How do I use it? Teach me how to use it.
Yeah,
And so then I would not only be super grateful that they would go out of their way to do that, but that also provided me not only an NFT sale, but it provided me that proof of concept for me
yeah,
to go, hey, look, I did this for this person, and this person, and I could like they'll tell you themselves that it worked.
yeah. So when
So why can't you? You
yeah,
know?
for sure. So when people bought the Metagirl NFT, what
Yeah.
came with it? What did they get, and what was yeah, what did they get with it?
So it's a digital token, aka NFT. So what I did is that I found an image, or I worked with an artist on an image, and then I attached the full song to that image. But I also did a 3D render where you're able to attach a video. So you get the best of three worlds. You get music, 2D art, and 3D art. Um, for Metagirl, we actually do not provide any rights, because I do know that one of the misconceptions is that people think that when you sell something as an NFT, that you own all the rights to it. What you do own is the asset, but what's within the asset is a whole nother
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
It's like
So
owning a
if you
Pokemon card. Like you own the Pikachu card, but you can't create your own TV show with Pikachu.
correct. Now you see that's exactly what people are not completely comprehending.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the case for Metagirl.
Mm-hmm.
They don't own the actual rights, to the images, to the music, to nothing. They just simply own the collector's token.
Yeah.
They own one or two or three, whatever, however many they have of that collection. And then by owning a certain amount of those tokens in their digital wallet, in their crypto wallet, they get perks and benefits along the way that the team and the founders come
Oh,
up with.
very interesting. So, like, if you own three of them, you might have special access that another person might not. Oh, that's a
Correct.
very interesting way to do it, right? To some degree, as opposed to like, as Gary V has his V friends, there's certain you can buy certain characters that have FaceTime with him, like that's a specific card. But as opposed to all doing like several of them, if you just own 10 of these cards, you get access to this.
Yeah, like for example, like I have 1,500 Metagirl digital hearts, and I can make it to where like, hey, if you have 20 hearts, you get two FaceTimes with me a year.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Two 30-minute FaceTimes with me a year. So then people can literally use them for birthdays. They could use them for weddings. They could use them for whatever, because
Now,
I'm gonna do a song for them or whatever.
is that in the contract, or is that something you just kind of announce after the fact?
That's more of an announcement thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of like a trust the founder that they're gonna do it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Now, did you can you stream Metagirl, or can you only hear it through the NFT?
At first, we wanted to solely focus on the project and on selling out the project, so we decided to take it off of all digital streaming platforms um, until the project was sold out, and
Mm.
that's what we did. Project sold out, and within the 2 weeks of being sold out, it was already back up on the DSPs. Um, we do think that at some point in the music industry, uh, it's going to influence like how much streaming activity is happening and how much like TikTok and Instagram activity is happening. I truly feel that at some point it's going to influence a floor price for an NFT one day.
Oh, absolutely. So, for example, like I'll share my idea with the NFTs. So, like I mentioned, I have like 135 songs out there. I want to create almost these trading cards where it's like the album art of the song, maybe the year it came out, kind of almost look like a Pokemon card with the album art, the year it came out, and maybe a line of the lyric, right? And then say I made 10,000 of them, that means that there's about I think if my math is correct, I think is it 100 of each? I don't remember. My math is terrible, bro. I'm a musician, not a mathematician. But regardless, there's a certain amount of each song, right? To add up to
Yeah,
10,000, right? Or close to it,
yeah,
whatever. So that being said, you buy, say you want to buy all from a certain year. I want to buy all. You can collect them in however you want. You can buy all of Jacob Restituto's 2016 songs, or you can buy your favorite song. Depending, or you could you could trade it as if this song has this many streams. I want that. That's a popular song. I want that song. This song isn't popular yet,
yeah.
but I think it's going to be popular in the future. I want that song. Or this song just means a lot to me. I want that song. Like in
Like
that whole concept.
every single song having a collection of 10,000.
No, no, no. I mean that'd be insane at this point for my career.
No,
Yeah,
not really.
I
Not
guess
really.
it's
It wouldn't be
135
insane.
collections though of 10,000. That's a lot.
No,
I
you make one big collection. You make an album, right, of 10 songs, and each song has 10,000
hmm
varieties.
hmm
And so like it's a 10-song project on the same project of 100,000,
hmm
and then whichever song becomes more viral,
exactly
those tokens will become more in demand.
100%. So that's
So
I
it's
was exactly what you
yeah,
were saying is the fact of like I
yeah.
totally think that it'll it's like it's no different than a Pokemon card that Pikachu became a very popular one, Charizard became a very popular one.
Hmm.
All these main characters became popular, and then there's all these random ones that like people don't really care about. You know what I mean? It's the same concept.
Well, you can make it to where, for example, like, let's say you make a collection of 1,000, uh, you know, of your cards or whatever, and you say, hey, in order for you guys to get perks and benefits to like my journey and stuff, like if I play a show in my hometown, how would you like to get a guaranteed meet and greet, a drink ticket, and a signed T-shirt after the show? You just got to hold 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so then you're like forcing them to buy more than one, and they're also holding them for dear life because they want to get all those perks and benefits.
Exactly. I also see
You
it as a
know,
great way for
so
people to invest in you, in the sense of like, if you really believe
correct.
in me, like I believe in myself,
Hmm.
either, and I want to keep, I want to make them cheap at first, like whatever, however much, especially because I would create so many that I'd
May I
want
ask
people to.
why though?
Yeah. So I don't think at this point I have the clout or whatever you'd want to call it to sell for a large price. And secondly, I want people to collect a lot of them rather than just collecting one big one.
Now let me tell you this, and this might help you, and this might kind of give you a better
Please,
perspective
I'm
on
an
how
open book, man. I want to
on
hear every all you
yeah, yeah,
way
yeah, for
farther along
sure.
than I am. So tell me all your info.
Well, the beauty of the blockchain is that you set your value now.
Hmm.
You do. Like Web 2 was forcing us to I guess determine our value. And that was like we can't alter what we get paid on by Instagram Reels. We can't alter
Hmm.
what we get paid through TikTok plays. We can't alter what we get paid on Spotify. We can't alter what we get paid on Apple Music. But we could alter our value on the blockchain.
Hmm.
See what I'm saying? So like if you were to start right now a music NFT project and you set your bar at like $200 a unit, how do you know that your fans are not willing to pay
Sure.
$200?
Sure.
See what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. I love the mentality of starting off like low for a better entry point, which I do think that that's important too, because like you said, low entry point, and then also blend that with education and onboarding.
Hmm.
It's going to provide incredible value in the long run,
Exactly.
which, yeah, and then you could sell more units, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a better entry point. But I was in a situation where it's different. I met these people who were already kind of like familiar with crypto and buying NFTs. So I'm like, why should I aim low? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to aim for something that's not high, not low, something that makes sense. A hundred
Hmm.
bucks, you know?
Is that what you sold them at?
And yeah, we sold a hundred and well, it's hard to determine that because Ethereum is constantly
Yeah,
changing in
changing.
value. It was 0.05 Ethereum at the time. We sold 1,500 units,
What was
and
Ethereum
Ethereum
around?
it was like 3,400. So
It's like
0.05 ETH,
150 bucks.
$170 a unit, and then we sold 1,500. So that was a Metagirl, like
Wow.
yeah, Metagirl made about $250,000, yeah. And then from that, of course, there's the developer split, the artist split, the songwriters, the producers, So there's a team involved. NFTs are a company. People have
Sure.
to understand that NFTs are a company.
Hmm.
And so there's more than one person involved to make sure everything is taken care of right. So,
Yeah. No, that's super interesting, man. I really
yeah.
appreciate that. Um, I had one more question for you. I don't recall it. I was taking some notes. Oh, I want to be respectful of your time, so don't want to go too far into this, but I want to provide value for the people watching this. You mentioned as a independent artist, you only have 3 people on your team, and this is a perfect segue because you mentioned NFTs are a team, collaborative essentially, or a company. I would love
Yeah.
to hear, in your perspective, like you said, you had a business manager, you said you had a publicist, and you said that you had an attorney. I would love if you could share for people that aren't in that position yet and want to get to that position, what each of those roles, what they handle in each of those roles, so that people, that aspiring artists can get to that point.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that a publicist is an incredible person to have to present you in a in a more professional light. Um, it puts you in front of new eyes, um, and
Let's
it
take it
allows you
even
to
a step back though. So for people like that are kind of relatively fresh in their career that don't even know what a publicist is, say, like, can you
okay,
explain a little bit more about what a publicist is, and then kind of explain
yeah,
what they're doing for you? I
yeah.
appreciate that.
So a publicist specializes in taking an accomplishment or a feat and uh, showcasing it in a journalist kind of style on like a billboard or on a Forbes or Medium magazine, People magazine, um, and they spotlight you in certain sections, based on certain accomplishments that you might have hit. So let's say you hit 50 million streams in a week because of a viral song on TikTok. A publicist's job is to go and create a write-up about your huge win and then pitch it to a bunch of outlets such as Forbes, Medium, etc., and get you that look and those impressions via their website, their email lists, and stuff like that. So it's ultimately to just bring you more eyes and to just have a more clean, fresh, look and showcase. So that's why I love working with my publicist. Her name's Kaylee Hamilton. She's phenomenal. And she's done so much for us in the past 6 months to make sure that Metagirl and Pixelated and Pulse Pass are all, showcased in the right light. And then, of course, my attorney, he's phenomenal as well, one of my best friends. And he makes sure that, all the art involved, all the music involved, every deal that I'm striking and all the partnerships and collaborations that I'm putting together, that is that it's all protected, to make sure that I'm protected, that all parties are protected. Because although NFTs and crypto are the centralized concept, it's still good to have, that legal framework in place to protect you in the long run in case something were to happen with IP rights or commercial or copyright or anything, publishing. And especially with music, it's very important to have an attorney in place to make sure all your creations are protected. And then lastly, your CPA slash business manager slash accountant. The crypto market is still a very, very premature realm that a lot of people don't know how to maneuver around just yet, especially with the whole conversion from USD to crypto and vice versa, crypto to USD. And even myself, like I'm still learning about how like the taxes, situation goes down when it comes to liquidating some of your crypto into, USD. And that's having somebody like my CPA, there to help me understand that and make sure that I'm like taking care of my books and saving money so that I don't end up in an awkward situation later on. I want to make sure that as a founder that I'm, protected in by every single angle. And so having that little small team allows me to fully execute creatively and professionally as efficiently as possible.
100%. And then did you find your team just by community of who you knew, or did you Google them? Or I'm curious how you found those.
I'm a big fan of finding people to work with through people who I already, have an established trust system with, because it's a quick yes. It's like, oh, if you worked with them, then sure. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that. And I live my life through that. Yeah. Now, if I'm in a situation where somebody that I know doesn't know that other person or somebody of that specialty, I'll have to dive in and, luckily we have those tools on social media that says like, oh, this person follows da, 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 da. And so like I kind of go through there and go, oh, let's see if I can find somebody that specializes in this art style or this production style.
Yeah.
If this person's following them, then they must be good.
Yeah.
And so we have all these tools that we can utilize, to facilitate our workflow. And I have my own, little ones here and there, but yeah, that's how I do it. Word of mouth is what I live by.
100%, man. Well, I really appreciate your time. And one of the last questions I like to ask everybody on this channel is, what is one thing that you currently know in your career now that you wish you knew when you first started out?
To remain authentic. I feel like early on when I moved to Nashville, I felt like, because Nashville is a very tight-knit community, the genre itself is very, they're very loyal to their kind. You know, they protect their kind at all cost. Um, and what's popular in the genre as well, it's, you know, in a non-offensive way, it's the same, you know, white boy country, flannels, blue jeans, boots. It's like the same thing, you know, just it always works. And so I felt early on moving from a town like Miami, that's like the night and day. It's a complete different story. Moving from Miami to Nashville, I felt like to be one of them and to be accepted and be invited to their circles, that I needed to, you know, change the way that I dressed, change the way that I spoke, um, write certain styles of songs that weren't real to me. And I did that for a while. I did that for 2 or 3 years,
Mm.
and it just didn't, it wasn't fun. It just
Hmm.
felt inauthentic, and I didn't want to live like that, you know? And I learned real quick that, you know, people just want to love you for you. You know,
Hmm.
they want to find something that's authentic and real. The fan can spot that from a mile away.
Yeah.
They can spot it when you're faking it. And so when I figured that out, it was really refreshing because I was able to just be me and
Hmm.
just be the Cuban guy singing country music, living in Nashville, and people were vibing with it, you
Yeah.
know?
Which I
And
think is a perfect opportunity. Actually, I wanted to talk a
yeah,
little bit more about your music, and we didn't get the chance to talk a little as much as I wanted to about that,
yeah,
because I think that your music is very unique in that sense, and it's actually it fits a really cool demographic that I think is underserved, and that is the Latin community within the country music genre. And like you mentioned, the fact that you have Cuban roots from Miami, uh, so you have the Latin blood, you know. And so with that
yeah,
being said, though, now in the country genre, combining the two of them, like if some people listen to your music, you got a really cool vibe where you have this Latin feel while
thank
singing
you.
country songs. And I think that's and like you said, like it's authentically you, which one makes it, like you said, way more fun for you to perform and sing and write, right? And makes you happier. But two, it's also serving a really cool community that I think, like I mentioned, is I think is underserved.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And like again, like my whole objective, you know, of moving from Miami to Nashville is because I wanted to just bring that flavor to country music and just bring some bongos and some shakers into the genre and get some hips moving, you know. And so um, that was, you know, and we're still doing that. You know, we're
Yeah.
12 years in, and we're still pumping away, trying to break through those barriers. You know, no pun intended, but um, I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. Um, and I have been in situations where the, you know, labels will tell me to my face that I need to be more like this or I need to be more like that. And it just, I just kind of smiled it off and just said, you know, I was waiting for that.
Hmm.
You know, I was almost walking in with
Hmm.
expecting that already,
Well, it goes
which is
back to the
sad in
rhino
itself,
skin
you know.
that you mentioned. Like you
Yeah,
could, to some degree, you
correct.
kind of years in the industry, you kind of one like you mentioned developed that rhino skin, you know, very thick skin, but also you kind of, I feel like you very early on at a necessity learned this I'll see it when I believe it kind of thing, where it's like it's not true unless the money's in your pocket, kind of like the gig's not done until the
Hmm.
money's in your pocket kind of thing. Because there's
Yeah.
so many things where it's like, oh, I have this phenomenal opportunity for you, or you know, I would love to sign you to this label, or whatever the case is, and it's like so many deals fall through, and so many people are inauthentic, and um, but like you mentioned, you kind of go into that deal being like, okay, let's see what you have to say, kind of thing, because you know it, you know, you've been in the industry long enough to know it.
Yeah, and like, you know, I hate the word ignorant because it sounds like I'm attacking, but like I just feel like a lot of, you know, fans, country music fans, like they just weren't educated on the Latin culture, and I don't blame them because the United States is not a Latin country. It's the United States, you know. And so my goal as, you know, being a Latino in country music is to bring education and bring awareness to the fan that there's more Latinos in the world than Mexicans. You know,
Hmm.
I feel like every country song that is Latino-ish is Mexico, and it's like I love Mexico, but there's Cuba, there's Colombia, there's Venezuela. You know,
Yeah,
it's like there's so many different cultures in the world,
100%.
and you know, it's gonna take the fan to be a little more open-minded to study that and remember it. And it's kind of like the same way that an American would respect a Georgian and not call them a Texas fan, because they lose their mind. It's the same way
Very
that
interesting. Yeah.
if you called a Cuban a Puerto Rican,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like we love Puerto Ricans too, but it's just kind of like that common,
Yeah.
respect, just
Sure.
respect, um, ethnicity wise. And
Yeah.
so, something that I had to kind of power through and just kind of, it's all good,
Yeah.
you know, it's not your
Absolutely.
fault.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, I'll like, when it gets a little out of hand, when they like start abusing of it, I'm like, okay, let me educate you on something real quick. And some of them get offended, and some of them go, "Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. Thank you for letting me know." And
Sure.
so then it opens their minds up to want to learn more,
Sure.
you know? And those are the kind of people that I like to have in my circles and would much rather have as a fan than somebody who's again ignorant and doesn't want to learn,
Sure.
And then
Absolutely.
that just becomes a little awkward.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I make music for everyone. I try to make music that everybody could enjoy, no matter where you're from, what color you are. I just make enjoyable music. And, I'm just proud to be a representative of my Hispanic culture. And, I'm going to keep doing whatever it takes to break down those barriers and introduce more Hispanics into the genre and, be a showcase of diversity in the genre.
I love that, man. Phenomenal. Well, I really appreciate your time. If you could hang out for 2 more seconds, I want to say thank you very much
Yeah,
to, first of all, you for taking the time to chat, but also to all the
thanks.
listeners to make it to the end of this conversation. You guys are the true ones making it through the whole thing, so I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Definitely go check out Sammy's music and his NFTs. I'll put all his links down in the description so you can go check that out. So definitely go check that out. Best way to support this channel is checking out my own original music as well. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. God bless and peace out.